The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on Agile Culture and Leadership. I'm Jenny Bailey, and together we'll be exploring how harnessing the power of your people can build an Agile culture. At the end of the day, it's all about people and how we can connect and work together to bring about a greater understanding and working practices. The Agile Business Consortium has been working at this and working closely with organisations and individuals within workstream Agile Culture and Leadership groups. And I'm delighted that I'm joined today by Katie Taylor, Director at the Consortium, and Parag Gogate, our Programme Manager, who have both been instrumental in these developments, and they're joining us today. So good morning, Parag and Katie.
Morning, Jenny.
Good morning. Hello. How are you both? Are you well?
Yes, we're good, thank you. And hello to everybody online.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I guess the first thing, obviously, this is a webinar about Agile Culture and Leadership, and specifically all about people, really, harnessing the power of people to build an Agile culture. But we probably need to really bring it back to the basic understanding, really, of what is an Agile culture. So, Katie and Parag, can you help me with that one, please?
Okay, if I could kind of start on that one. Culture generally is defined as the values, the beliefs and the behaviours of any particular group or team or organisation, and really even a country. And as Charles Handy summed up so well, it's the way things get done around here. So these values, beliefs and behaviours within an organisation can be both visible and invisible. So there are visible policies, processes, you see values stuck on posters on the wall, to the invisible ones, the kind of the unwritten rules of any organisation. The way that we do things around here, and this is the way we've done it. We've always done it this way. So an Agile culture still has values, beliefs and behaviours, but it's about changing mindsets and emphasis to value people, to create an environment that defines a shared purpose and promotes flexibility and adaptability. Now, there are sort of various definitions of Agile culture, but as yet there's not really a shared or an agreed definition for Agile culture. And you can see from the two examples that we've got on screen at the moment that both share sort of commonly used words such as flexible, adaptable, and use these in a way to deal with complexity and uncertainty. And it's about seeing things differently. Today's modern business is in a continual state of movement, and successful organisations look to continuously improve rather than just change from one static state to another. And I think really a lot of what we talk about here is not really new. Was it the Greek philosopher Heraclitus that said change is the only constant in life? So when we're looking at Agile culture, it's still about values, beliefs and behaviours, but it's the way these are interpreted and executed with the emphasis placed on people that help create the right environment for an Agile culture to thrive. So hopefully that answers some of your question, Jenny. But sure. I'd like to kind of just also add to that is that at the Consortium, we very much believe in this people focus, and we've been working with practitioners and undertaking research across a wide range of fields to try and identify the elements that are key to ensuring that this Agile culture thrives. And indeed, these elements are the very core of flexible and adaptable organisations. We've named these 7 elements the Agile Culture DNA. And as any DNA, they adapt and evolve to suit specific contexts. So when we're looking through some of the elements that we've got here, we kind of start with Agile leadership. So there's very much a close link between Agile culture and Agile leadership. And the Agile leadership is often likened to servant leadership, where there is a lot less command and control. And then looking at the idea of well-being and fulfillment, recognizing that people are more than just a resource that you allocate. It's the happy employees that make happy customers that generate profit for organizations. So paying attention to some of these elements. So we've also got the idea of unleashed purpose and meaningful results. So most of us don't just want to work for a company. We want to belong to an organisation that gives us purpose and is successful. And that really is very much part of our human DNA to feel that we belong and that we're making a difference. Adaptability to change.
There's that word again, isn't it?
It is very much this recognition that change now is the norm. This is the constant state. And in order to sustain this continuous improvement, organisations need to be both stable so that they can do business as usual, but also have flexibility to adapt and change.
I think also it's interesting to say that it's the change of now. It's like the transformation that you were talking about to us earlier, isn't it?
Yes.
Change isn't like a constant state between you've changed and now everything's different. It really is that constant process, if you like, of evolving.
Yes, really what you're looking at is continuous improvement is what you want to be aiming for all the time. And so that there is no end, if you like. Everybody always thinks you want to move from one state to another, but what we're looking to do is always be flexible and adaptable, like a lot of systems are in nature, that they adapt to the situation around them. And modern organisations need to take on that kind of mindset.
That's always a great analogy as well, isn't it? Looking at nature, looking how flexible and nimble and adjust in difficult times. How nature copes really with the uncertainty.
Yes, very much.
We have to do the same.
Yeah, but it's not easy, always easy to do. And one of the elements that we've got here is about trust and transparency. And it's very much about being open, honest and transparent in all our day-to-day workings, so that we build trust and commitment with all stakeholders, whether they're employees, whether they're customers, whether they're suppliers, that kind of thing. So, you need these kind of elements to be in place in order to get this flexible, adaptable organisation. And the one that often causes problems with this idea of collaborative communities and distributed authority. A lot of people appreciate that working in teams and collaborating is a good idea, but it's always the kind of the distributed authority. In traditional approaches, you had the manager, or you had a hierarchy of power and control. And I think one of the hardest things about business agility is that it challenges those kind of power structures. So what we're looking to do as agile leaders is that they need to devolve decision making to those that are closer to the problem, so that those that are closer to the problem are able to make better and faster decisions. And then really just our last one there is innovation, learning and personal mastery, what we call personal mastery. So learning through feedback, being more experimental, I guess, using the cycle of do, inspect and adapt. And being able to take on small pieces of work, learn from it, and then take that learning forward. Also taking the time to kind of reflect on what went well and what could be improved. So all of these are important factors. But as we said, none of this is easy, and for organisations to become agile, the people need to believe in these elements and really also have to buy into them. But Parag's going to have a look, I think, at some different examples.
Exactly. It would be great to see some examples about this because, like you say, it's not easy for a lot of organisations out there. It's a very big change. That whole hierarchy system is a complete change, and giving people that authority, if you like, to get closer to the issues and make those changes or make those decisions in collective groups is can be quite alien, I think, to some more traditional organisations out there. So, Parag, let's look at some examples. What have you found in talking to our colleagues?
Yeah, sure. Before we get into the examples, I just want to mention a couple of things to the participants that we are recording this webinar, so you will have the recording available after the webinar. And also, if you're getting any sort of ideas, questions, comments, or any thoughts you'd like to share with us, please use the chat box that you see on the screen on the right-hand side and drop us a message, and we'll pick those up towards the end of the session. So we'll
Absolutely.
do a bit of interactive Q&A as well.
Yes, thank you for that, Parag. At the end, there will be an opportunity for questions, so please just forward your questions through, and I'll be able to put as many as we can forward to Parag and Katie and endeavour to get them answered for you. And the conversation will stay open as well, and there can always be an opportunity to email us with further questions, and we will get back to you with the answers. So, okay, let's look at some examples now.
Yeah, there are many examples out there that you can find, but I'll kind of pick 3 different examples to illustrate how you can build an agile culture that Katie described earlier on. And one thing I'll sort of throw a caution to the wind about the use of word agile in this context, where you may relate it to sort of generally accepted agile practices of managing projects or product development, Scrum and DSDM and many other methods out there. What I'm trying to illustrate through these examples is how the organizations you see on the screen have actually evolved their culture. And then when this was happening, perhaps the word agile in its current shape and form was not even known. And the reason for that is, or to illustrate these examples, is an important thing to consider and remember that this is where we draw inspiration in terms of how we developed our DNAs that Katie shared earlier on. So let's look at some examples. The first one you see on the screen on the left-hand side, Timpson. So those of you who are from UK, you will recognize this particular organization. It's a very well-known high street retail chain. About 5,000 employees all over UK, 1,100 odd branches dotted all across the country, and turning over about 160 million in excess of revenue every year. And established really 150 years back from a one-man shop, one-man band to where it is now. And it's quite fiercely private in what they do. And the chair, John Timpson, who has presented in various conferences that the Agile Consortium has organized in the few years, shares really interesting anecdotes and stories on how they've been building what they describe as an upside-down management. And that is all about harnessing the power of people. That is the subject of our webinar. So let me share some examples to illustrate how they have empowered their frontline colleagues who work in the shops. And you can find more examples in the book I mentioned, The Upside Down Management, or indeed if you do an internet search. So just some of the examples that they have is where they put complete autonomy to the colleagues in the shop, in that they can set prices, they charge to customers. They only have 2 rules they have to follow in shops. The rule number 1 is the colleagues need to look the part, i.e. they need to turn up to work looking the part, they represent a brand, they need to look, and they need to put the money in the till at the end of the day. So cash is accounted for. Beyond that, the organization has not set any rules, and they allow their employees, their colleagues to run the business, serve their customers, resolve complaints in the way they should without having impact on day-to-day operations. Timpson, as an organization, trusts their employees to make decisions on a day-to-day basis. And one of the really good things about the organization is their corporate social responsibility, where 10% of their workforce is from prison who are ex-offenders. So they look to rehabilitate those individuals. Now, if you think of it, this organization has also gone through recent acquisitions. So in case people out there are wondering, well, that's well and good, but what happens when you acquire a different company? And I had the good fortune of speaking to Mr. John Timpson in one of the conferences, and I asked him this question: that how do you manage? How do you transform the cultures of the organizations you have acquired over the years? And his simple answer was, it takes time. It has taken them 2 to 3 years to transform some of the other companies they've acquired over the years. And this particular upside down management philosophy that you hear from them itself has taken 20 years in making. And it's a conscious effort. It doesn't happen overnight. And you'll read more about the book, more in the book if you look at that. So that's kind of a Timpson, one end of the scale, a small organization, 5,000 employees. Let's look at the second organization, Toyota. That I really don't think needs any introduction, but I'll do some quick run through the numbers. Founded in 1930s, as we all know, it's a multinational organization, manufacturing, just over 350,000 employees worldwide. Pretty much every country, continent you can imagine, they are there. And they really, if you like, pioneered what we know as Toyota Production System, which then obviously evolved into things like lean principles over the years. So much so, the popularity grew that a lot of other manufacturing organizations and even service organizations around the world have adapted Toyota Production System and really transformed their organizations. The reason I picked this example, because Toyota is an example of what we call contradictions and paradoxes in management and cultures. It's almost the machine versus human contradiction, because looking from the angle of machinistic view, Japanese culture is very much rooted in hierarchy. I know we mentioned hierarchy a few moments back, and that could really stifle an organization. But here's an organization that is very traditional and hierarchical. At the same time, it's absolutely amazing how they've empowered their people. So if you sit there wondering, is hierarchy really bad or good? Don't take it on face value. You'll have to really test it out for your own organization. But look at Toyota, how they have harnessed that. So again, I'll give you some examples of how, in spite of their rigid hierarchical structures, how people or the power of people is harnessed. So some of the examples to say that you have to look at Toyota's values and principles. They really talk about efficiency. That's number one, because it's not by accident that you become the world's largest manufacturer of cars and vehicles, producing in excess of 10 million units a year without being efficient, without developing your product in the most efficient way possible all around the world. But at the same time, they allow their employees, their colleagues, to give ideas on how they can improve. And you must have heard this phrase called continuous improvement that comes from Toyota Production System. And it's all based on the people, the examples that the people give. They allow people to experiment. You must have heard of the word fail fast. That is also rooted in their culture. They consider their people as accumulation of wisdom and experience. And employees are allowed to challenge their senior managers if they feel the decisions that are being made are to the detriment of the operations. Another conscious effort that Toyota does is, in spite of their vertical hierarchies, is to create horizontal relationships and networks that allow for open communication. They also encourage their people to forthcome with ideas. And one thing that really demonstrates Toyota's commitment behind their people is, there's an example in research done back in 1997 when there's a huge financial crisis in Asia, and the Thailand operation of Toyota sustained heavy losses for 4 straight years. But in spite of all that, they did not cut any employee numbers. They cut costs in their production, in their manufacturing operations, but they did not cut any employees. And their philosophy and ethos were very clear that it's the people that make this operation the business. So that's an example which is quite rare to find, where organizations sustain losses year after year, and they get their pressures from shareholders, market forces, which makes them cut employee numbers. And there's a big organization that we are hearing very recently is in the press in UK, who is gone in liquidation, and we're hearing lots of news about it. And it's going to have very detrimental impact on employees, no doubt. But here's an organization as an example which has not done it. So taking from Timpson, which is a small high street retail branch, to a Toyota, which is, very manufacturing oriented, multinational conglomerate, to let's look at another example of Handelsbanken. It's a Swedish banking organization, and as you can imagine, banks work in a very regulated environment. They have to follow lots of rules and regulations. They have to also follow very stringent criteria, their own rules, procedures, and policies around how they lend and transact and carry out financial transactions. But this organization, which was founded in 1871, has in excess of 13,000 employees, mostly Northern European markets. But it's called a beacon of better banking. And just last year in 2017, they won an award for being the most admired bank in UK amongst all the banking organizations. So they were in competition with very large banks, as you can imagine. So what's the uniqueness about this particular organization is that it's a decentralized system they operate in their branches. So we spoke earlier about autonomy, empowerment, and if this is an example of autonomy, then you need to really visit this particular organization and see. So what they've done is they've allowed their branch managers to run their branches in a completely autonomous way. And 70% of the day-to-day decisions related to customer service and banking are carried out by those bank managers and colleagues in the organization. And what Handelsbanken has done, normally you will find in the banking sector that there's a lot of technology investment happening, but that investment is done to really drive cost, transaction cost. So essentially what banks are doing, closing branches and letting customers transact directly with their, like a call center or through online applications, mobile applications. But what Handelsbanken is doing is they're investing the technology to make sure that the customer contact that they have with the branches actually is enhanced. And the branch people are productive in the way they deal with customers and earn more revenue. Another interesting aspect of Handelsbanken that most of you will find it quite surprising is that they don't work to a budget. They have no bonuses. Even the CEO of the bank doesn't get a bonus, and they have no sales targets.
Wow, goodness.
In spite of all that, in case anybody is wondering how they perform financially, well, guess what? This is one of the only banks who, since the 2008 financial crisis that the world experienced, has delivered year-on-year shareholder return. Now, bear in mind, this is a publicly traded organization, and shareholders look for their dividends. And they have delivered that year-on-year for the last 45 years without fail, in spite of all the crisis. They have grown their revenues by 8% year-on-year, and earnings per share of 8% as well. So this kind of goes to show that when you empower your people, I know it's a cliche word at the moment, but
yes, it is.
It can result in bottom line results, positive results. All those three organizations demonstrate. So I just wanted to kind of share some examples with the participants that you can look up on your own. There is a lot of research out there on the internet, but this agile culture we talk about is real. This is not some mumbo jumbo that we have made up. It's out there. It's been around for good 60, 70 years, like a Toyota example, or Handelsbanken, or even Timpson. And I've also got some more examples to show, which I won't go into the details, but I just wanted to signpost that we hear a lot about 3M, which is quite an innovative organization. We use a lot of products of this particular organization. If people have heard of Zappos, which is an online retailer of clothes and shoes, which was acquired by Amazon. In fact, the interesting thing with Zappos is they even organize training sessions on how other organizations can become more agile in terms of culture. we all know about Google, and it's been written quite extensively in books and in research papers and articles. And even in UK, those who are based from UK, you'll recognize John Lewis, who run supermarkets and departmental stores, which have a very unique model of having partners who are owners of the business. So what I'm trying to say here is there are many examples out there which you can draw inspiration from and actually look at how you can transform your organizations. And we'll be very interested to hear from you guys. If you have any other examples you can share with us. I know there are some known, maybe unknown small organizations that we would quite like to research if there are out there. So please share some examples with us as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. That would be fantastic. Send your information through to us at Jenny at agilebusinessorg. There's more information on our website regarding this as well. But Parag, it's an amazing story, really. Those agile organisations that are still going through their process of agility as well. It's not like we said with Katie earlier on. It's not like you get to a point and it finishes. It's an evolving situation. More people are joining, and they're really enhancing and putting the power of their people first, aren't they? Which is making a huge difference.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at Toyota example I shared earlier on, it's been going around for 70 years of continuous improvement journey. It hasn't stopped. Toyota itself says that there's always ways of making improvements. There's always things you can improve and make it better. So like Katie said earlier on, this is a journey you will start. You just carry on. It's not you start from here and you end there.
And when you were going through those examples, another one that I recalled regarding Timpson was the fact that on the shop front, as it were, they have the ability to look after clients up to a certain value. I don't know, can't quite recall what the value is, but it's a few hundred or something, isn't it?
I believe it's £500.
£500, that's right. So if there's a discrepancy actually on the shop floor with the service or whatever, then the actual person there who's working that day really can actually manage that process and use their own initiative really to solve the problem.
Yeah,
which again is new thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's really a great example of how do you harness the power of people. So empowerment might be a cliche word, but actually it is true. And I've just given you some examples where it can actually work. So yeah.
We probably don't need to ask this question, but it's an important one. It's all about the people. So Katie, building the agile culture, the importance of it then, and where do people start with that?
I think that's an interesting one, and the companies that Parag has used as examples really have all recognised and understood both the necessity for and the benefits of business agility. And I think organisations these days face two real challenges in the sort of turbulent world that we live in. One of which is the kind of rapid speed of change, whether it be technology or in politics or basically in the economy, in all aspects of life. The speed with which things are changing seems to be getting faster and faster. And then the second one is about interconnectedness. The global world in which we live brings an awful lot of complexity. So when you've got kind of complex and rapid speed of change, we need to seriously look at the way that we operate at the moment, which was fine in the probably 19th, 20th century, but in today's world, it's just not good enough. So we need to look somewhere different. So this idea of business agility really is not just a nice to have. It's all about survival, and the research and evidence that's out there. You can see on the screen now some research from Mighty that's saying 70% of UK organisations are going to be agile workplaces. There's another one there from the PMI, the Project Management Institute, shows that organisations that are more agile are more successful. But it's also not just about survival. We want to do more than survive. And basically, there is more and more evidence showing us that business agility makes sound financial sense. Looking at that from MIT there, what organisation wouldn't want to grow its revenue or generate higher profits? So there are some real sort of hard facts and evidence around now, and it's this kind of evidence that is something that we can use to help influence senior teams, C-suite, our colleagues, whoever it is. We need to start getting on board with this message. So there's
Okay, so that's why it's important. So we get that, and the message is very strong, I think. But we probably don't we need to take it back to the level of the people and how the people can make the difference.
Yeah, it is. It's really quite interesting. I just want to go back to Parag's example of Toyota. This is, the Toyota way has been championed as the gold standard of production for many years. It has been researched and scrutinized and unpicked in so many different ways to try and work out, what made it so successful. And often Western organizations could pick up specific tools or techniques and actually use those. But they very often missed the kind of the magic behind it. And as this quote from this research shows, once you've ruled out the fact that it's the conversion rate with the yen, it's the docile workforce, it's their particular culture, all of those problems. The bit that really stands out is what Toyota did was harness the intellect of, in quotes, ordinary employees. So, the power is already in the organization that you're working in. And what we have to do is, give people the environment and the means to do that. The definition of the Toyota way is a system designed to provide the tools for people to continually improve their work. So whilst the tools and the processes are important, it's the people that are really by far that make the biggest difference. So we need to know how to harness the people.
It makes sense, doesn't it? It all comes back to the people. I mean, we're the interface, we're the connectivity, if you like. We're the brains. Obviously, computers and the automation system is incredible as well. But at the end of the day, it's the business with the people and the power that they can actually put into their workplace. So regarding that, let's take it back to the people then, in terms of how, people listening to this, it's very much a case of the organizations are doing it, but what can we really do at our level to start this process possibly?
I'll cover how listeners on this webinar can take some tips away and start doing something with it when they go back to their organization. Before I do that, probably worth mentioning one more point back to the different examples we shared earlier on, as well as Agile Culture DNA. Let's not be under any doubt that not any organization you take it, nobody's perfect. So once we're sharing all these great things organizations are doing, you will also find things that have not done so well. Or
that's a very good point.
So we need to bear that in mind. However, what's important is what they're actually doing and making success of it, rather than us dwelling on what they're not doing as well. So Handels Bank, for example, had their own shares of corruption scandals as well. So it's not that they have been devoid of all that, being a banking organization. In spite of all that, what they've not given up is their continued focus on harnessing the power of people. Toyota had their own share of issues over the years. Scandals around emissions, recalls on, some manufacturing defects. They all had those issues. But in spite of all that, they haven't given up on working with their people to make it a better place to work. And Timpson had their own shares of issues and boardroom battles and buyouts and stuff like that. So I just wanted to highlight that and kind of share things that you could look at. So in terms of the power of people, you need to understand what you can do as an individual, what you can do when you're part of a team, as well as at an organization level. It really has to happen at 3 levels for this to really work in a systematic way. individual, the best thing you could do is start a conversation after today, and have another conversation with your colleagues, build networks, discuss ideas on how you could start developing agile culture. Look at your own leadership skills, and we'll give you some sort of links to all the white papers we have done on agile leadership towards the end of the webinar. And if you download those and review those, you will see that when we say agile leadership, it's not just a bastion of senior leaders and executives. Everybody can be an agile leader. Look at the team level. If you're part of a team or you're a team manager or in charge of the team, assess your awareness and readiness on how you are in terms of being agile. Understand how you do things here. Looking at our DNA, use those as an example to almost do a readiness assessment. And make sure that you are aligned to your organizational strategy, purpose, and values, stated and set in code. And then from an organizational perspective, we really need to understand who are those influencers and sponsors. One thing has been very clear with the examples I shared earlier on, they all have strong senior level sponsor. In the case of Timpson, it's the chairman, John Timpson, who set the tone. In the case of Toyota, it has been generations of Toyota family, who again, if you look upon Toyota, one thing they have not changed over the years is their values. People have come and gone, but they haven't changed their values. And again, in case of Handelsbanken, the CEO who set the tone. It's quite an interesting story with Handelsbanken. About 18 months back or so, they actually got rid of their CEO because he was trying to do something which was contradicting their decentralized autonomous system. So the board unanimously decided that it was not appropriate for the CEO to carry on. So
right. Well, it happens, I guess, doesn't it? If they're not following the culture, then it's a difficult time ahead. I guess the culture is so embedded in organisations that when you do get somebody that's not quite fitting, I guess that's a decision that needs to be made, isn't it? Because you all want to go in one direction.
Absolutely, but it also emphasizes you need senior level sponsor.
Very much.
I mean, we hear this all the time that for any change to happen, we need senior sponsorship, and this is no different. But really, I cannot emphasize enough how important this is in terms of sparking that change we are talking about. And again, at an organizational level, we really need to understand, first create the awareness of why we need to be agile in a cultural perspective. All the examples we have shared, all the research that Katie has shared earlier on, should help you guys who are listening to us today to have those conversations. And then we have some more tips and tools coming up that might help you in terms of becoming more agile. So it's about understanding your core purpose and strategy, how aligned they are. How do you then therefore create an enabling environment for this to happen, and developing agile leaders. Katie will just talk you through the details.
Thanks, Parag. So, I think we just wanted to leave you with what we thought were three real positive steps of what you can start to do, once you finish this course. So, this idea of evolving purpose and strategy. So, from the examples, from what we've talked about, there really is this mindset change where we worry less about process and efficiency and concentrate on people, and that's all the people within an organisation, the employees, the customers, because all the evidence shows us that if you do that, profit will follow. So start with the people and a subtle shift in the way that people think. We've got our Agile DNA as these kind of building blocks that you can use. How about starting to use those as part of your success factors, whether you're at a team or department or even organisational level? So if they are part of your success factors and you start to measure against them, then things will start to happen and change will start to happen. If you want more evidence, there is something called conscious capitalism. Definitely recommend you have a look at that site because they have done an awful lot of research into this people focus and have some real hard numbers of the difference that it can make. So when we're looking to influence, when you're starting your conversation and you're looking to influence somebody else, it's very useful to have that kind of hard evidence. So that's our step one, evolve your purpose and your strategy, and there is a couple of things there that you can do to help you on the way. So secondly, it's about creating this enabling environment. There's this, as Parag had said earlier, this sort of position where we need to be both stable and dynamic, but it can be done. Organisations that are moving towards agility and that are classed as agile have been able to do this. And perhaps one of the first steps that you can do there is start to look at your own team, your own organisation, and 3 stages there. You first of all need to make people aware. That's what we said about the evidence. Well, this is actually powerful, and you're trying to create a desire for people to find out more. Then how ready are you as a team or as an organisation? So, you've sat here and listened, and hopefully you're convinced what is it that you now need to go out and do. So you need to get to some stage of readiness, and then from that be able to assess your strengths, areas that need improvement, and be able to come up with some kind of plan. So that's our step 2. Step 3, as we said, there's a very strong link between agile culture and agile leadership. So you need to develop agile leaders. And for us, that's not just the people that are senior in your organisation. Leaders are throughout the organisation. And, leaders don't develop followers, leaders develop other leaders. So this is the kind of organisation that we want. We have previously published 9 principles on agile leadership that highlights the desired behaviours that we want. Maybe use these agile leadership principles and map them against your current values and behaviours. Again, identifying areas and gaps that you can then work on. Coaching and mentoring, very strong in business agility as a way of learning, and they need to make that specific to your organisation because every organisation is different. Yes, in sort of skills or agile project management, a training course is very useful, but in some of these people-focused areas, coaching is often seen as a more powerful way of doing it. So the sort of strong message there. So 1 about evolving purpose and strategy, 2 about creating the right enabling environment, and 3 is about developing the leaders to be able to see this through. So if I hand it back to Parag.
So building on what Katie said, just wanted to really summarize in terms of agile culture and leadership. And we said earlier on that they have a symbiotic relationship. One is not without the other, and leadership drives culture. Culture in turn drives leadership. And you see this happening in every organization throughout the world all the time. So that's something one needs to remember. But in order for us to build an agile culture, which is very much a customer-centric, customer-focused, where we have shared values and commitment, we need effective agile leadership, because that in turn fosters and promotes the very things we said earlier on. And we also need transparent and honest communication along with autonomous collaborative teams. And all this is encapsulated in our Agile Culture DNAs that we have shared earlier on, the examples you've shared as well.
I mean, this information has been gathered, hasn't it, over the last couple of years, really, where we've been working with large organisations, individuals, thought leaders, really to bring this work stream that you guys have been developing and working very closely on, and actually being instrumental on putting it together. So the tools we're actually seeing now are part of the output, if you like, of the work stream, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So we have a couple of white papers available that I believe we'll be sending out the links to the
Yep, absolutely. Look, no problem. As soon as we finish the webinar, what I'll be doing is sending out the recording of the webinar along with with the links and the slides to the white papers and any more information out to everybody that's been registering for it today. So that's not a problem. We'll do that.
Fantastic. So a couple of initiatives we at the Consortium are working on developing to help organizations on their Agile culture change journey. Or, for example, a pulse survey or cultural diagnostic that you can use. It's still in beta testing at the moment, and we are also opening this up to get feedback of the participants who have joined us a webinar as a special gift. So there will be a link to the survey that you see on the screen when you get the slides, and it'll be great if you can do the survey.
So it's like a health check, is it? It's like a health check of how agile their organisation is, or how they're developing the ideas? What is it?
It's kind of a self-assessment. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, this is the readiness side of it. So there's 29 questions there, and it can be done individually. You could do it as a team, or you could even send it out to the whole organisation. And once the questions have been answered, it feeds back information on the different categories. So it's quite useful. Senior management perhaps may see you as quite ready to be agile, yet the people on the ground might have a very different view. So it's a really good tool to get the sort of temperature of what's going on in the organisation and how different sectors of the organisation think they are or not ready to do this. So it identifies gaps and differences. So it's quite useful for that. So yeah, I very much would like to hear from anybody that uses that, what they think and how useful it was. And then that moves on to the next stage that we will be releasing shortly as well.
Yeah, and we're also looking to develop a coaching program that, again, we can help the organization senior leaders and managers on their Agile Culture journey. We've already mentioned 9 principles of leadership. There's a white paper out there that can be downloaded. There's also a white paper on the Agile Culture that you can download, which you can include the link before we send this out. There's some interesting and very beneficial stuff that has come out from Bill Joyner through a book called Leadership Agility. It's definitely worth looking into. We at Consortium have done a few workshops last year that Bill did it for us, and it really appeals to senior managers, C-suite, and senior teams on how they can bring about agility practices on a day-to-day basis in their leadership styles. It's very much a vertical leadership development model and not skills and competencies from that perspective. And of course, we have lots of other resources on our website that the participants can have access to.
Yeah, and I think it's just an important point to put across that the Consortium as a kind of an independent, not-for-profit organisation works with a whole range of partners, Bill Joyner being one of them. So, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're bringing together the best that's already out there in a whole range of industries and making sure that all of the other partners buy into our values and principles.
Okay, no, thank you for that. I mean, if we can stay on that slide for a bit, because obviously there's lots of information for everybody to take on there, and that information will also be relayed when I send them out an email later on. The time's probably come for questions, really, and one of the questions that's come through is how do you know when you've actually reached this point when you are an agile organisation? And I guess from my understanding and from where we've been discussing, there isn't actually a point that you kind of go, we are agile, is there?
We have at the moment the Pulse survey. Now, the second part of the Pulse survey is a matrix which starts to map the questions from the Pulse survey onto almost like a scale of readiness. So you're always looking to continuously improve, but you can go through various stages. So, you might start off in quite a chaotic way and then be able to move to a more open and trusting environment. So give us, as I say, a week or two, and I think we will be able to put that out there. So yes, there are ways of recognising it. Following on from the Pulse survey, we're just doing the final work on a matrix that allows you to map where you think your organisation is on the Agile journey.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. Another question we've had come through is they're really discussing about the power struggles between the C-level, the consultants that are coming in the door and training them, whether they're Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, that kind of thing, and also the understanding of the teams that are trying to put their viewpoint forward. I mean, I think Katie and Parag, the first thing we'll say is it's like everybody needs to be on the same page, don't they?
Yeah, I think Parag said earlier about you really do need senior C-suite buy-in to this. Agile typically has started bottom up, so teams adopt various practices and ways of working and are usually quite successful, but then struggle once they hit perhaps the project management layer or the financial governance type layers, and that's the point at which you've got to get the senior team bought in to actually get to the point where you're looking at shared purpose and shared vision, and you're doing work to try and change the mindset of the whole organization. So yeah, it is difficult. Managers and above, what's in it for me? I'm giving up, in quotes, my power for what seems like no reward. Maybe I'm still held accountable, yet I'm giving away control. So it is a very difficult one to deal with, and it's very important that there is senior awareness at the top. So things like our executive briefing, which is a couple of hours with senior teams, works very much on this point and getting them to recognise that they have to, fundamentally change those power structures and start to build a more trusting organisation.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Parag, would you like to add to that?
Sure, yeah. I just wanted to add a few things that the power struggle is quite a complex topic, and why they're happening in a particular organization, what should be done to stop. I would say it's kind of really beyond the scope of what we're discussing. It's topic in its own right. But what we need to do is look at the whole organization from a system point of view, because there may be other factors out there that is causing the symptom that we see in power struggle. So that may itself not be the reason why it's happening. So when we said earlier on about making about the change in agile culture or whatever, you really need to look at the whole organization in its totality, in a holistic way. Because culture, remember, is the way we do things here, and that just doesn't include what we call the soft elements, the mindset, the behaviors, and the values, but it also includes the hard elements, the things that are actually happening, your processes, your procedures, the applications you use, the tools, the stated, unstated both. So it is a complex undertaking, but it can start in a simple way by having those conversations with each other.
That's what it starts with. It starts with thought process and conversations, doesn't it?
It starts with you as an individual first.
Yes. And we can all do this, can't we? We can all have the ideas, we can all have those conversations, and we can all work to a better working practices and more of an agile organization. But it all comes down to the people. I think throughout this webinar, I think we've really demonstrated, given details, given the research behind it, and what the consortium is actually doing to get behind this whole topic, which is a big topic, isn't it? The culture and leadership, the harnessing of people and the power. It's a very big topic, but we can all put ourselves in this position because that's what we are. We're all people, and we can all think this process through and add to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, we're almost out of time, so we haven't got hardly any more time for questions, unfortunately. But I will, like I said, the recording is being made. I will send this out to everybody that's listening. So I just want to say thank you, really, to Parag and Katie for sharing their expertise with us, sharing what the Consortium is most recently now doing with the culture and leadership workstream, and the amazing work that's been done, and the collective work, if you like, that organisations, thought leaders, and individuals are really putting into that into that working content that we're developing at the moment. So thank you for that. As you'll see on the next screen now, we're saying that our next webinar, I'm actually going to be joined by Barbara Roberts, who's the Professional Development Director here at the Consortium, and we're going to be talking about Agile Portfolio Management, and in particular, why bother? I don't know if Parag and Katie, if you've got any thoughts on that at all, but we'll be discussing that on Wednesday, the 31st of January at 11 a.m. The Agile Portfolio Management was first launched in Australia back in December of this year, and it's developed into a MIDI book. It's actually available to be purchased on our website, so all the information is on our website, but please go to the events page also of our website so you can actually book in for the next webinar if Agile Portfolio Management interests you. So I look forward to talking to you then. But again, thank you very much for Parag and Katie for sharing your time with us this morning and your expertise on Agile Culture and Leadership, and in particular, how it's all about the people power, like we were discussing. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for those listening.
Thank you as well.